Hey everybody, good morning. Thank you for joining me once again for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning and focus combination because you know I love the bergamot and the little zing of the peppermint. So good, so good. Anyways, guys, I hope you're having your tea or coffee or whatever with me, hanging out. Today's going to be a little bit something different. I would call it maybe edutainment. Something like that. We're going to be doing some math. All the people out there that are creatives like me that might not like math, too bad. You're going to learn some today. All right. I've never liked math. And then once I hit college, all of a sudden I started liking it, and I was in trig and calculus and all kinds of other stuff, and I still don't understand it. I don't know. It just kind of is what it is. I think creatives just don't see things mathematically, do we? I don't know. We kind of get through it, I guess. Anyways. So today we're going to be calculating crop factor and using it so that we can get a 35 millimeter equivalent and looking at focal lengths as well as f-stop when you do get that 35 millimeter equivalent. Why are we doing this? Because I talked about medium format and a lot of people had a ton of questions and comments and all kinds of stuff going on when it comes to that GFX 100S that's coming out. Now I was telling you that it is a crop medium format. It's not a full medium format, but it's still medium format, and there's a ton more data there in comparison to a full frame. And you can see that by just seeing what the crop factor is and taking a look at it. Now, there was a site, let me see here. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to bring it up for you guys, and hopefully we can, yeah, here we go. It's over at Shutter Muse. We have to give them credit for this, and they put together this chart. And now this chart basically shows you the 35 millimeter full frame equivalent and the equivalent f-stop using any of the GF lenses. So it doesn't matter any lens that you use on one of those GFX cameras, this is what you're going to get out of it. Now these are the figures for the 100. So that's a GFX 100 or the 100S. This is what you would get. So if we just come down over here, let's go down to like a 50 millimeter. If you put on the GF 50 millimeter f 3.5, now the equivalent to that 50 millimeter would be 40 millimeter on a full frame. And the f-stop would be 2.8. Now that would make sense, right? Because you have a larger sensor in that GFX 100 in comparison to a 35 millimeter. The real estate is a heck of a lot bigger when it comes to that medium format or crop medium format, okay? So now while we can use a chart like this to get the information that we seek, well, how about if we want to change it up a little bit and find out, well, what is the crop factor if we go like micro 4/3 to crop medium format, or if we go even larger to like a Hasselblad full medium format all the way down to an APS-C? What is the differences? What's the differences in f-stop? What's the differences in the focal length? Okay, what are we going to get out of it? And I remember when I first started shooting Hasselblad, and I was thinking to myself, why do I have to use a 120 millimeter, 130, 140 millimeter lens to be able to get something that's like 80 normally? Because the sensor is so damn massive, okay? And then, of course, it goes down into f-stop also. You get a 5.6, let's say, f-stop on a full massive medium format, and it's the equivalent to maybe 2.0 on a full frame. So there is that difference. And knowing the difference gives you an idea of what you need to buy if you're purchasing lenses, if you have in your mind the thought of 35 millimeter. A lot of photographers see the world in 35 millimeter, okay? They know the 35 millimeter look of a 50 millimeter lens. But when you throw that 50 millimeter lens on like a micro 4/3, it doesn't look like that anymore, right guys? It's more like a portrait lens, okay? So we're gonna go into that right now, and that's all that we need to know. You see this guy back here? All right. We just need some of his math. That's all you need to know is how to do addition, square, and square root. That's it. We're not going into anything crazy. Addition, square, and square root. Super, super simple, period. And you know, I'm a creative. not like the math guy. So if I make any mistakes in here, that's fine. Let me know what they are, and we'll make the corrections after the fact. I'm going to make this video a little bit more easy to understand, all right? But before I get into it, and I show you my iPad so we can get in there and start drawing and writing, I want to ask that you go over to JCristina.com/ebook. Once again, JCristina.com/ebook. Go pick up my ebook. It's free. 10 tips at making tack sharp images. There's something in there for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a professional, a pro-am, or an amateur. You're going to get something out of it, I promise. Once again, JCristina.com/ebook. 10 tips at making tack sharp images. Pick it up. Before I get into my iPad, I just want to say what we're doing here, all right? We're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem, all right? And we're going to figure out the diagonal or the hypotenuse of sensors. That is it. Very simple, okay? And to boil it down, we have a short side and a long side. On a full frame, we have 24 millimeters by 36 millimeters, okay? The Pythagorean theorem to get that diagonal is very simple. You basically take the square root of the sum of the square of one side and the other side. Now that sounds a little bit convoluted, but it's not. Think about it. We need the square of one side. Why? Because you have two of identical sides, right? We need the square of this side also, the long side. Why? Because there's two of them. All right, so it's simple. You take this square, add them together, and there we go. And then we take the square root. Very simple. Very, very simple. So let's go ahead and jump right onto the iPad, and we'll get right into it. So we're going to do some math for Micro Four Thirds, for APS-C, for full frame, and for medium format. All right. Once again, we're going to use that Pythagorean theorem, and this should be absolutely a no-brainer. Let me go ahead and change my pencil to black, and we're going to dive right into it. Let's shrink the size just slightly. And what we want to do is first we want to get the two sides. All right. So we have side A, which will be 36. We're going to square that. Side B, which will be 24. We're going to square that. Now, like I said before, a sensor that is full frame is 36 by 24. So that's what these numbers are. They're not coming out of nowhere. This is not magic, guys. It's not magic. So C is what we're going to try to find for. We don't know what C is. That is the diagonal that goes straight across, the hypotenuse, okay? This is what we're going to look for. So A is going to equal 1296. B is going to equal 576. So C equals 1872. Very simple. So once again, this is what we're trying to find. This area right here, that is the hypotenuse or that long diagonal. You can always remember too, if you have a right angle, the exact opposite to the right angle is that hypotenuse. That's what we're looking for. So if we take the square root of 1872, that would equal 43.26. That is our magic number. That is what we're going to use to be able to find all of the information that we need. Now, let's do the exact same thing for the GFX or the medium format. So the square root of 3000.85 is equal to 54.78. So once again, that is the magic number that we need to remember for medium format or from the GFX line, okay? Remember, this is the crop sensor. So the crop medium format is that 43.8 by 32. All right, so we have to keep that in mind. So we have two magic numbers. Now we can do this for APS-C and we can do it for Micro Four Thirds. And what I think I'll do is I will do it for you real quick. We'll speed through it so this way you don't have to sit and watch it. But this way we'll have these magic numbers to later on be able to use them, or you can use them after the fact. So let me jump in here. That's it, guys. We did the math. The math is here. It's done. We have our super numbers, right? We have those numbers that we need to be able to make these calculations. Now, it is just a simple step now of dividing the one that we're looking for by the one that we are currently at. So let's go ahead and take a look at what is the crop factor for example, an R5 in comparison to a GFX 100. How do we do that? That's all that we have to do is take that diagonal length, which is that magic number of 4326, and the medium format number of 54.78. do the division. So it would look like this: 4326 by 5478, 0.79. That's rounded off. So you're looking at a crop factor of 0.79 when you're going from that 35 millimeter or the 35 millimeter equivalent. And now we can use that to simply multiply into any of the numbers. Let's go back to our screen where we had the 50 millimeter 3.5. And we say, well, 50 millimeter 3.5, how did they come up with this equivalent of 40 millimeters and the 2.8 f-stop in comparison to 3.5? Well, simply with that crop factor that we just came out with, right? 0.79. So if we take that 50 millimeter, all right, let's get back to our page here. If we do 50 millimeter and multiply that by 0.79, what do we get? Exactly, 39.5, hence 40 millimeters. And that's how that number came up. Very simple, right? The same thing with your f-stop. If you take that 3.5 f-stop, multiply it by 0.79, you end up with right around 2.8. Let's do the math so that you can see it. So we do 3.5 times 0.79 and hit enter. We come up with 2.765. Hence, that's why they come up with f2.8. So that's basically it. Super simple. That's all you have to do is use the Pythagorean theorem, stick in your dimensions of the sensor that you're going from and then the sensor that you're going to, do your division, and that's it. You have the exact crop factor and you know what's going on. That's why so many times you hear people that are saying, oh, I shoot micro four thirds, but I'm using a 50 millimeter f2.8. And they're like, yeah, it looks good, but I have a lot of depth of field. It's not so shallow, right? Well, of course it's not that shallow. Why is it not so shallow? Because your sensor is small, and that diagonal, that line, okay, that diagonal, that magic number is going to be a lot less than the magic number for a bigger sensor, right? It just makes perfect sense, right? It's about 2 times the crop. 2 times the crop. So if you work in the crop factor, you can go to anything. So that's why when they're shooting 2.8 of 50 millimeter, it's equivalent to like 100 millimeter on a full frame and like 5.6 or higher. So you're going to get a lot more depth of field on the micro four thirds in comparison to a full frame. That's it. There's no like secret to it. It's just simple math. That is it. Simple math. And I think by showing you this math, I hope it gives you the ability to do it yourself and not be stuck looking for calculators and hoping that they're right or they're wrong, or if you're going the wrong direction. By understanding what you're doing, you can do it yourself for anything. So what I did is I took a couple of minutes to throw together some magic numbers, those diagonals, okay? So you don't really have to. But I did it for different cameras, just so you can use it as a baseline and then do your simple division, okay? And what I did is I put together this list based on really large medium format, like a Hasselblad, the H6D 100C. That's a 100 megapixel full sensor, let's call it medium format. Now that thing has the magic number of 66 millimeters. 66 millimeters, 66.72 millimeters, okay? Think about that. Now the crop of that GFX 100 has a diagonal of 54.78 millimeters. Well, when we dumb down to a full frame, you're at 43.27 millimeters. Now that's for a full frame that is 24 by 36. There is some full frames out there that are a little bit odd and it's going to be slightly off, but we can still use that magic number because it's going to be close enough. 43.27. Now, when you look at a APS-C camera, like for example a 7D Mark II or something like that, it is going to have a magic number or a diagonal, a hypotenuse of that sensor of 27.66. If you look at a Panasonic GH5, for example, that is a micro four thirds, it's 21.64. 21.64. And finally, that iPhone 11 or a XR or an X or an XS Max, whatever, those sensors are coming in at 7 millimeters. That is 7 millimeters, all right? So you could imagine, just think guys, 7 millimeters, all right? A full frame is at 43.27. And then people were like, I don't know why. Why is there so much depth of field? Why is stuff not shallow on my phone? Why does Apple and Samsung have to fake, all right, that depth of field, that milky type of bokeh in the back? Why? Well, that's why. The sensor is so damn small, the math has it. It's just simply what it is. I don't care what you do. It doesn't make any much of a difference. You're looking about 6 times the diagonal length on a full frame compared to an iPhone. So is an iPhone ever going to be able to do what a full frame does? No, it's just simply mathematically impossible. Now through AI, can they do it? Artificial intelligence, go and do like all kinds of stuff, find the focal plane. Let's say they're going to use my eyes and then everything back that's going to be fakely blurred. Yeah, you can do that. Does it work all the time? No. Sometimes. Depends on what people are wearing, how their hair is. There's a lot of factors in it. So, I mean, like I said, you can fake things, but only by so much. And once again, like we started with, the FujiFilm GFX, all right, that 100 megapixel camera that they came out with, the 102 megapixel actually, 54.78, magic number, in comparison to a full frame 43.27. So, no matter how you do it, once again, the math has it, you're going to end up with a ton more information on that sensor. That's simply it. And once again, when we go back to that chart that we were talking about before, it is so apparent. If we come down even further, like an 80 millimeter f1.7, the equivalent would be a 63 millimeter. The 35 millimeter equivalent would be a 63 millimeter by 1.3. All right? What a major difference. Correct? If we come down to 250 millimeters, so 250 millimeter f4 would be a 198 millimeter equivalent at f3.2. So this basically gives you an idea of how things change based on sensor size. And once again, using the Pythagorean Theorem, you can find out exactly what your crop factor is. And you could compare A to B sensor. It doesn't always have to be to 35 millimeter equivalent. If you are, for example, a GH5 user, okay, you know what everything looks like through that camera. So in your mind, you're not thinking about what a 35 millimeter equivalent is going to look like. But if you want to see, or if you want to know what would everything be like if I got rid of my GH5 and went to a GFX 100S, you're looking at probably about 1.5 times the amount. All right? 21 millimeters to all the way up to 54 millimeters. It's a lot. It's a big difference. All right, a ton more data. So anyways, guys, I hope this helped a little bit. I know it's a little bit into mathematics and we're using a Pythagorean theorem and we're doing other stuff that might not be the norm for this channel. But I just wanted to give you this information because I think that it's kind of important to know where stuff is coming from and not always rely on calculators and other people to tell you what to do. I am definitely a proponent of learning new things, even if it's something that's out of my wheelhouse, because I think that it is important to constantly, every day, gain knowledge, all right? We don't want to fall asleep behind the wheel, and next thing you know it, we find out we're 85 years old, and we're like, what the heck just happened? Life is over. We want to learn new things all the time. And as photographers, knowing what crop factor is what, and how to get there, I think is pretty cool, and I think it's kind of important. There's a lot of other things that you can do with these type of calculations that we're not going to get into here. It gets a little bit, once again, highbrow, but there's a lot that we can go into if it's of interest to you. If it's like a sleeper and it's not something of interest to you, then I completely understand. But if you got something out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. That will be helpful for me, helpful for the channel. It'll help YouTube gods say, hey, someone else should look at this. It might be important. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, please subscribe and hit this little bell icon over here so when I go live or come up with new videos, you get them immediately. Also, if you want to contribute to the channel, click the little button down here that says join. All right, you become a member, and at that point, you give $1, $2, $3, whatever you want to do per month, all right, to support the channel, and I'm able to give you perks also. I love that YouTube has now offered that to our channel, and a lot of people are doing it, and I thank you so much for it. Also, if you haven't downloaded my ebook, like I said before, go grab that over at JCristina.com/ebook. That would be great because there's a ton of great information and it's free. Once again, JCristina.com/ebook, 10 tips at making tack sharp images. And finally, if you haven't went over to my website yet, go check it out. Head over to JCristina.com where you can find all the photography tools that I've invented for you and me over the years. Hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. That would be awesome. And use promo code YT20 at checkout. If you've been here this long, you've got to give you something. And that's it. Use promo code YT20 at checkout. You'll get 20% off everything in your shopping cart. It doesn't matter if it's a focus pyramid, a PRT, or one of the Aurora Camera Care cleaning products, or some of the Dark Moon teas that I'm constantly drinking, right? Whatever it is, 20% off. Promo code YT20. Anyways, guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this guy's nonsense, his math. If you did, once again, thumbs up the video. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for being here. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe and stay healthy.